I don't often do follow-up videos, but this time I feel like I have to. If you didn't see my video last time, it's about the Canadian trucker protests that I'm sure you've heard of. The situation in Canada for the truckers is getting much, much worse, and the levels of authoritarianism on display are shocking. Like, it's right out in the open, there is no attempt to hide it by the establishment. I mean, usually they try and dress it up. Justin Trudeau has refused to meet with the truckers. I think he wanted it to be seen as some kind of grand gesture standing against the insurrection, but we all already know what the truckers want. You know, it's not some big secret. They simply want an end to authoritarianism, and I know I'm going to get one comment moaning about how this isn't truly authoritarianism because it was worse in another country this one time. Okay, first of all, don't do that, it's stupid. And second of all, don't take it from me, take it from someone who's lived it.
I'm from Iran, and I am proud to be between the freedom-loving Canadian patriots.
Do you live in Ottawa?
No, I came here from Toronto.
Oh, yeah.
I did a speech on the stage, and I lost my freedom once in Iran by the Ayatollahs, by the mullahs. I don't want to lose my freedom again in Canada.
God, these white supremacists. Take your racism back to Iran with you. And in one of the most unself-aware moves I have ever seen, Justin Trudeau has vowed to end this protest from spreading. Yeah, that's the kind of authoritarian attitude to peaceful protests that got them out there in the first place. He continues to accuse them of the typical isms and phobes that we hear so often it just becomes like white noise. You know, when I was younger, if somebody called me a sexist or a racist, I would have been hurt. But that gave way to apathy long ago, when every other word out of their mouths when talking to somebody outside their little hive mind is an accusation that you're an ism or a phobe. Well, it tends to lose some of its impact. And I don't know about you, but I find it quite funny when I get accused of being a racist by somebody who's been in blackface not once, not twice, but 3 times at least. The Canadian courts ordered an injunction at the Ambassador Bridge, which is responsible for about 25% of the trade between the US and Canada. This injunction has already kicked off, and the reaction of the people? Well, you can see for yourself. And more people keep turning up, and that is despite Trudeau appearing with a message for the truckers.
If you joined the protests because you're tired of COVID, you now need to understand that you are breaking laws. The consequences are becoming more and more severe.
Wow, I am so intimidated. He is absolutely terrifying. He's even got President Biden urging the Canadian government to use its federal powers to stop the protest. So much for his working class hero facade. But just let that sink in for a minute. The government of America is encouraging another country to forcibly suppress peaceful protesters. You know, we like to claim that here in the West we have a moral high ground, that we're better than your average dictatorial regimes, but really are we? If the leader of America can so easily condone the same kind of behaviour, they're not looting. They haven't burned anything down. They're not trying to overthrow the government. They are protesting for freedom peacefully. Look how the police are currently acting towards these citizens. And it's obviously not the police's choice. I mean, they might be dicks, I don't know, but they've definitely been ordered to do this.
You take those cans off of that truck. Is that your property? It is now. So you have the right to take gas cans off of a trucker's truck, is that correct? It is correct. According to what? Aiding and abetting criminal? A criminal offense. So now when you have gas cans on your truck, it's a criminal offense.
They're withholding and stealing fuel in freezing temperatures, which won't help their goal anyway because they won't be able to move their trucks. It really jades my opinion of humanity when I see things like this. I mean, you hear about the Nazis of World War II and you hear the horrific things that they did, and you think, well, it'll never happen again because people aren't as evil. But like they said, they were just following orders. And so were these officers. They'll say they were just following orders, keeping their heads down and keep that paycheck coming in, instead of doing what's actually right and standing up to this kind of abuse of power. And I hate to use the Nazi comparisons because it's so overused, and it trivializes how bad they really were. But in this case, it kind of fits. That situation, you know, the one in the mid-20th century, it didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, gradual process that began with the demonizing of certain groups within society and normalizing their treatment as second-class citizens. See any parallels? One elderly trucker was arrested for honking his horn, and the police were extremely rough and extremely aggressive with him. I won't show the aftermath here, but if you want, you can Google his bruises. We're just following orders. A CNN analyst, Juliet Kayam, tweeted out encouraging people to slash their tires and empty their gas tanks, and then move the extremely heavy vehicles after? I mean, come on. She works for CNN, what did you really expect? She continues with a list of ways to hurt truckers, and you can't help but think, alright love, do your worst. But at the end of the day, you'll be the one watching your 3 kids go hungry because no food is being delivered. She eventually walks back her claims pretending she meant something else when there was a negative reaction, because of course she did. Spines are a very rare commodity at CNN, but if you listen to the mainstream media in America, you'll believe these are violent extremists that want to overthrow the government. I'm not lying, they actually say that. But if you do listen to the mainstream media, then frankly there's no hope left for you.
Some of the organizers of this protest, which, as I mentioned, started more than a week ago, they do want to overthrow the government.
Canadian officials calling the situation a, quote, nationwide insurrection.
The police chief says COVID protests are a, quote, nationwide insurrection driven by madness.
Those with the so-called Freedom Convoy say they're staying put.
It's a cult.
Yes, it is.
Absolute insanity. They're saying that this has been taken over by QAnon conspiracy theorists with no self-awareness that their take is itself a conspiracy theory, and there is a very good reason that all their mainstream media sources are not out there interviewing the truckers, but instead just having their hosts do opinion pieces and lying about them. Because if they did interview the truckers and let them say their piece, you'd realise that these aren't the extremists they're being painted as. They're just people concerned about the authoritarian direction their country is going in. For example, it's not just arrests, but GoFundMe was threatened with serious legal action, and the Canadian authorities actually tried to take all the money for themselves. They literally wanted to steal the donations of people. Thankfully though, GoFundMe refunded it to the donors. And the truckers are meant to be the criminals here? And if that wasn't enough, there is also an intelligence operation underway in Canada to track the people who are financially supporting or donating to the truckers, with legal action threatened against those who do. And given how crazy the situation's already gotten, and how authoritarian they're getting by the minute, I fully expect them to try and coerce their allies into prosecuting people in foreign countries. I mean, Biden already seems pretty on board with it, right? There is also another donation site. It's called Give, Send, Go, and it's refusing to bend the knee to Canada, but the Canadian courts have already outlawed it, and it's difficult to know whether the money is actually going to reach the truckers. Though so far, the charity has promised it will. They responded to the Canadian court ban, naming their brand specifically, and said that they have absolutely no jurisdiction over an American company, which I think was a delightful middle finger. They went on to say that they will definitely give the money to the truckers directly if they have to. But like I said, Biden already seems on board with him, so it remains to be seen whether he will try and coerce them as well. But keep it up, Give, Send, Go. I like your attitude. I'll leave a link to them in the description below. You know, there is still quite a few points that I haven't covered in this video because I just couldn't fit it all in. So as the situation continues to unravel, if it rolls on for another week or two, I may cover it again. But that about wraps up this one, folks. So as always, thank you for your time.